Right, well, welcome back to our weekly yarns. For those of you that's new to the channel, my name's Barry. Right, well, what have we been getting done this week? Wow, I've had a busy week. Had a really busy week. Monday, total failure on Monday. That was bank holiday. It's just, you kind of get now done on a bank holiday around here. We're living next to the coast and that. Everything's just chock-a-block. But we got across the farm. We collected the lift cylinder and we collected the nuts and bolts and bits and pieces that we need. We also collected some brake bits and we got them sorted out. We'll have a walk around in a short while and we'll show you what we've been up to. But we're getting an awful lot of painting done this week. We really did. And even though I've been to work 2 days this week, went in on Tuesday and then got asked for to do Wednesday as well. So Thursday and today, the rest of today will be manic. I was painting all day yesterday. You'll see it. I'll take you around and show you. It's hanging up. We've got our clutch release bit painted. I did that in here. All this was covered with sheets and that, and I had a piece of cloth that I simply cut a hole in, cut a slice in, put it onto there and taped it up so I could get in and spray this. All the rest of it I took off and I've got it hanging up here spraying. We've been working on with the clutch from John. What we've got up to now is we've got all the clutch components painted except the springs. The springs will get done this afternoon. The springs for the PTO release plate, they were yellow and they're going to get back to yellow. The springs for the friction, the drive plate, the main gearbox drive plate, they were blue, so they're going to get painted blue again today. And then they'll get hung up for a week before we're starting to rebuild the clutch and set heights. But just to clarify a few points, John very kindly sent us that plate up, and we were extremely grateful for the fact that he sent the plate up, because although it was the wrong size, we did strip the plate, and again I'll take you around what we've got here. When we rebuild the plate, we will be reusing the 3 fingers that were on John's clutch, the release plate that was on John's clutch, the rattle springs, the roller bearings, I think that's it. The rest, the castings, basically the big metal work is the original, because there's no wrong with mine, and it's got to be, because it's that size, it's got to be an 11-inch one. The steels arrived for the new pins. This came the other day, quarter steel. And what we'll do is we'll cut that up into lengths, and then we'll get the holes drilled in for the new pins. All the split pins do is stop the retaining pins from rattling sideways and coming out. So that's not so bad. Oh, and injector nozzles, only 2 turned up. So you go online, you order 4 because they've got 5 in stock, and only 2 turn up, 2 to follow. How do you work that one out? But it is what it is, so we just have to wait now till the other 2 turn up. And realistically as well, we couldn't have gotten on with the injectors either, because of the lock nuts. Because of the lock nuts. Remember the lock nuts? Remember where we're... There, in there. There it is, there. You can see just there at the top, up here. There was some damage to all 4 lock nuts, and I messaged Lance in Australia and made an inquiry with them as to the state of these lock nuts. And after watching Lance's video, I knew that these should have been able just to thread up and down on top of the adjustment screw. Right, they should just go up and down on there, clean as a whistle. That goes on half a turn and stops. Now, you cannot get it anymore. So, I messaged Lance what my problem, and what Lance has come back with is, again, a sort of, if you go back and watch me on the video taking these to bits, you can see it on the video. I put a 1-inch socket on these, and the socket wobbles because, where are we? 1-inch socket. Got the nut, 1-inch nut. It will not go into a socket, and it pivots on 2 points opposite the damage inside the thread. So asked Lance his opinion, and Lance come back with, he thinks some big-fisted bugger's been at these with an open-ended spanner whilst they've been in the engine. He seems to think that probably what's happened is they may have developed a leak from underneath the copper washer. Pop that back in there, and that somebody's gone in with an open-ended spanner and given them a bit of jip, which has ovaled the nuts. So Lance has suggested trying to reshape them, and I did. I popped them in my vise with the damage in line with the jaws, so when you squeeze it, it will pop that open because it's narrowed in at that point. And you can get it to the point where it goes in maybe 3/4 of a thread, but then it locks up again. So it looks like I need to replace the 4 lock nuts off all of the injectors. So I've been in touch with Colin this week, Colin Stewart up in Aberdeenshire. Been in touch with Colin. Colin's going to have a look, see if he can sort me out 4 replacement lock nuts and 8 brand new copper washers to go with them. So I'll be talking to Colin again possibly next week, early next week, with regard to them. So as I say, there's nothing could have getting done anyway until those lock nuts turn up. But you know what, that's just life, isn't it? That's the way things happen. I'm quite pleased with the paint, and all the painting's getting done. The clutch pedals got done, all the bits and bobs that were needed, all the bits that were red for this area. Lift cylinders ready. We just need to, next week, I need to get on and order the large sealing O-ring, which is 3 7/8 ID, for the back end of the lift cylinder. I want the O-ring, the piston O-ring and backup washer as well. I would like to get that hydraulic cylinder into position and get the piston put in to stop any rubbish going inside it. So that'll be a little job in a couple of weeks' time coming up. The other day I was looking online for gaskets for the lift cylinder and for the selector on the opposite side where the rock shaft goes in. The gaskets that I took off were aluminium. They were aluminium, and these, as you can see, these have decided to see better days. They are, I don't know how they're so grotty when these have been nipped tight between 2 castings, but anyway, so I was looking online for replacements for these. You can get the metal ones, the aluminium ones, £7 ish each, But I also noticed that they are doing replacements in paper for £3 each. So, having got the paper here, the gasket paper, what I did was, yesterday afternoon, rattled off 2 new gaskets. So I've got my new gaskets there, ready for when the O-rings arrive for the lift cylinder. The rock shaft selector, the selector for the hydraulics, obviously can't go back on at the moment because it needs the valve chest and everything sorted out, but we'll get this side put on and we'll see where we're at with that. As I say, it's been pretty manic week. I'll give you a quick whiz around and we'll see what we've got. Let's go for a little walk and we'll see what we've got on then, have we? Right, so we've got all our clutch components painted. All the little spring retainers. Them two's only there because they're loose in the house and everything else sits nice and rigid in the house, and so it stops there. PTO plate painted inside and out. This is the friction, the 11-inch friction plate. As you see, obviously, haven't painted that face because that's the pressure plate face. Rattle springs painted, fingers painted. As I say, we're going to reuse John's bearings in here. We're going to give them a wash, grease them up, get them built up again, put them back together. We will be doing a separate video just on putting the clutch back together and setting the finger height. These were actually in a lot better condition than I had first thought. When I saw them in there and they were dirty and grotty, they looked really worn. But by the time I got them cleaned up, wire wheeled and cleaned up, I was very surprised. There's hardly any wear at all in there. So, as I say, we'll loosen them off, we'll get them all prepared for the adjustment on the fingers for when we're starting rebuild. So, springs are still there. These ones, the longer ones, which are the main pressure plate, they're going to get blue. The shorter ones will get yellow because they were yellow originally, so they'll go back to being yellow. Then it'll be all bonny colours, won't it? Right. So 2 nozzles turned up, 2 out of 4, cannot complain, 2's better than none. As I say, we can't do anything till we get parts from Colin. As soon as we can get those parts located and we'll get a bit of time, we'll get the injectors rebuilt. As soon as we get word from Colin that he's got some replacement lock nuts and washers, as they get down to it, we will get those rebuilt and tested and set up ready for operation. Hydraulic lift cylinder with gasket. So this is one new paper gasket we hammered out the other day for it. It got a coat of paint. We've unmasked it, cleaned all this off, masked it off. This bit at the top, there's only there's only this bit and this bit to paint. A 3-way valve bolts onto here, and there's only this last little bit that actually comes flush with the casting on the back end of the axle. O-ring 3 7/8 to fit in here, and then as I say, for the piston I want the O-ring and the nylon backup washer. But that'll go back in, out the way safely. More bits. Clutch pedal. Over the moon with that, that's come up really well. Clutch pedal, gearbox input shaft stop, the brake mechanisms. This is for the clutch release, it's for the return spring. And now we've got our my bits and pieces. That's the actuator for the diff lock, and here we have our pedal for our diff lock. Over the moon with the way they've turned out. I quickly lashed the paint onto them yesterday afternoon, and luckily got them hung up in here drying when it started to rain. So it must have been minutes, and I got them into here, and if I had gone away for a cup of tea, the whole lot would have been spoilt. So let's have a look at these other bits. We've got what? Brake actuators. This is the one for the driver's side. I'll pop across the farm today and grab the bolts and the seals for these, and we'll get those put on. Little bits for the clutch spring, the little spigot that holds the spring. There's our spring. More levers. Also on the back axle, we're getting the pivot points and the fulcrum pin put back in for the brake shoes. The activating levers is going to go back on here. Going up the farm today, I want the dust seals that go in there and the cutter pins to lock those to the actuators. So they'll get all put back in today. As I say, it's got a quick coat of paint. These, that and that, which is a clutch stop activator and a pivot point for the little arm that fits on there. For that little arm, that goes on there like that. What I'm going to do, I'll lash a bit of paint onto the nut here by hand and the end of the shaft by hand. I'm not going to paint the area that they contact each other on. That'll get painted by hand as well, because it's looking a bit bare. We'll get that sorted out. So those brakes have been done both sides, near side, off side, just the same. They've all been popped back in. But during the week, the replacement gauge for the injector tester came. As soon as we get 5 minutes, we'll get that put on and we'll get our injectors tested again. The damaged one, we're not sure whether the damaged one actually was calibrated properly. Once it had been damaged, it had been knocked about. You don't know what's happened to the internals. So we'll just need to see. I remember the old injectors were popping off at about 2.4. Once we put the new nozzles in, we'll set them up to 2.7, 2.725, I think it is, for brand new nozzles you put them in at. So we'll get that all done, sorted out, and then we might get this fired up then. We'll have to rig up a temporary tank. We've got a supply line here, a return line here from our leak offs, and it'll be nice to hear this run. Even though there's no coolant in it at the minute, because I still haven't been able to get, I want the double wire clips so that it looks good. There's no coolant in it. There's no alternator or dynamo on it at the minute, so there's no fan belt on, but it would be nice to get it run up for a couple of minutes just to hear it run, and then it would be. We can then check what oil pressures we've got while we're running. We can then take the rocker cover off again, check all our valve clearances and get it buttoned up. So we'll be getting some painting, more painting done. We've got here 6 thin yellow springs, which are the internal springs for the large blue springs here. These are for the friction drive plate, the 11-inch one. And these yellow ones these 6 yellow springs up here, or for the PTO plate. So we'll let them hang there for a week. We'll get dry and hard, and then after that we will begin to clean the bearings, and then we'll get the clutch plates put back together, hopefully for the last time, and we'll get them put back on the tractor. So just before we go, I'd like to share some images with you. John Moore, who very kindly sent us up the clutch plate that we were getting the parts off, sent us 3 images of a tractor he's restored. The paintwork on this tractor is amazing. So I'm going to put them up here for you to have a look at, go through them, have a real good look at them. I think I've asked John if he shows the tractor. I'd like to think he does, because it's in remarkable condition, and I think he needs to get it out there so people can have a look at it. So I'd like to say a big thank you to John for the clutch, a big thank you for the images, because that's how I would like my tractor to look, other than the fact it's going to be chocolate and white, but you know what I mean. I'd like it to look that good when it's finished. And I'd like to thank Lance McGaskill for the information that he sent up regarding the lock nuts and everything about the injectors and the clutch. Hope you enjoy the images. Right, well that's it for this week's yarn. Nice short one, keeping it clean and tidy, but as you see we're getting a lot of painting done, getting bits and pieces done. Now don't forget, if you like our videos, give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, helps the channel out an awful lot, doesn't cost you guys anything. The channel is still growing steadily, and it would be really nice to get it up there to 500 by the end of this month, because we've grown 100 every month for the last 4 months. So as I say, it'd be nice to get up to 500 subscribers by the end of this month. So don't forget now, don't overthink it, it's just nuts and bolts. Take care, see you in the next one. Bye now.